A camper is so much more than just the materials used to make it. It's a cultural archetype that crosses all boundaries. It's a respite from the cold, a shelter in the rain, and a sanctuary on a dark night. For me, it's all of those things and more. It's a canvas from which I can express my creativity, a monolith of my achievement, and a passion that keeps me sane. All right, everybody, welcome to my truck camper tour. If you're new here, my name is Dave. I run the YouTube channel In Game Campers. For about the past 4 years, it's been a passion, an artistic interest of mine, and I've just loved building handcrafted, totally unique little truck campers in my garage. And the one that you guys see here is my 9th iteration. I know I probably got a little bit of a sickness trying to control it. I want to give you guys a tour of this very special camper. This is probably arguably my favorite one that I've made to date. When I make these, it's so important for me to capture the artistry of the camper. I think most people don't look at truck campers and think of them as anything more than functional. For me, though, I found the functionality is what got me into the building, but I found that they can be beautiful. This camper weighs right in at about 500 pounds dry. There was a way that I was able to achieve that, and this took years and years of experience, but this is how it goes. First and foremost, this is largely a pretty small camper, okay? It only sits, the interior height is only about 5'5" tall inside. It fits within the confines of a 6'5" bed, so it's 77 inches long. And it has a small stubby cab over, which is, when you guys see the tour in the inside, you guys will see it's primarily storage. So one of the ways, it's just a small camper. The overall width is 75 inches, so it's not super small, but it's definitely on the smaller side. But the next method is the build technique. There's many ways to build a camper. This one is built basically through a composite structure of 1/4-inch plywood laminated to EPS, or expanded polystyrene foam panels, on the inside, which creates a really strong structure. And then the outside is waterproofed with a polyurethane based coating. This system has some pros and it has some cons, but the pros of it is it's very lightweight. I think it looks beautiful, and it's very easy for somebody like myself, who's just a hobbyist building in my garage, to make. The downside, of course, is, there is plywood in this construction, so if you ever were to have any water intrusion, it could cause some damage pretty quick. However, this system has been reliable for me. Number two is, because I've built so many of them, I've been able to kind of decipher and limit down what I need to make really strong and what doesn't need to be as strong. That's hard for me to describe in a video like this, but it just took years of experience. I remember one time I had somebody describe to me what's the difference between an engineer and a non-engineer. And this is a generalization, but I think the point hits home here, is it was an engineer can calculate things to make it just strong enough, as opposed to overbuilding it. The point is, it's easy to overbuild things, but to make them just strong enough to where it's safe, it's functional, it's effective, but it's not overbuilt, is finding those balances where you can keep things light. And, I'm no engineer, and I'm not claiming to be. However, with the years of experience I've had making these, I've been able to kind of fine tune it. And I'm very proud of this one. One of my philosophies of all the builds I have, though, across the board, is finding that balance between comfort and mobility. I'm sure most of you out there, if you're watching this video, you probably have heard that concept. But just broadly speaking, what that means is in the RV and camper world, you can put, you know, we all want comfort, right? We want the biggest campers possible. We want all the amenities, all of those things. But with that comes extra weight, comes with extra size, it comes with extra complexities. And it a lot of times takes away the mobility of whatever that vehicle is driving it. And that's certainly the case of truck campers mounted on, well, you know, trucks, right? So for me, I've always been striving to keep the weight as low as possible on my campers, to make them as aerodynamic as possible, yet at the same time balancing that with still being comfortable. Now, that balance is a subjective one. Everybody is going to have a different position on the spectrum where they lie. So for myself, this thing has really hit the mark. This truck drives beautifully with it. Very minimal impact on gas mileage. As you guys saw from some of the footage driving out here in the desert, I can tackle some very rugged terrain with no issues. When you guys look inside, I think you'll be really surprised at not only how beautiful it is in there, but how comfortable. So on top up there, what you guys see is 3 100-watt flexible solar panels. So a total of 300 watts of solar. I splurged a little bit and got some higher quality flexible panels. We know they have some pros and cons, but for me, for aerodynamic purposes and to maintain this beautiful roof line, or at least I think so, I use some flexible panels. That window that you see right there, that's an acrylic window that pops, or that can open in an outward fashion. And they came with, as you'll see on the inside, a very beautiful trim kit, which makes it nice and neat, and you can get total blackout conditions in here. Those acrylic windows also provide some additional insulation over what you would typically see with just a single pane glass RV window. Of course, on top up there, I've got a Max Air fan. I've got a couple overlanding style necessities. I've got some extra fuel, a baby traction board, and a shovel. That circular porthole window as well, just a window. And then in that upper right-hand corner, I've got an exterior light. And what you see there with those vents and that door is what I call an AC pod. So what that means is that this has a 5,000 BTU air conditioner unit sitting behind that door. So if you were to open up that door, the condenser would be right there. And that AC unit is meant to run completely off grid, no plug-ins. In fact, there's not even a shore power plug-in on this camper. I've made other campers where the tailgates can shut, which is the case on this one. And I've had many people concerned about, well, what if you're camping in there and somebody shuts a door on you? So I made a Dutch door system. So that allows you to open up the top door and leave the bottom one shut, vice versa. And finally, how do I attach this to the truck? On the inside, there's 2 transom style ratchet straps, something you'd use like to tie down a boat, which are bolted to the side of the camper and connect to the floor, to the strap hookups on the bottom of the truck bed. And then in the rear, you guys can see I've got some turnbuckles that hold it in place securely. Why don't we jump on inside and take a look, guys? Like I've said, you know, I've built many of these campers and I've refined all of my techniques. And to this date, this is my favorite interior. Let me go ahead and explain to you the features in here, and I'll talk about some of my inspiration. So first and foremost, this is the bed area. It's 36 inches wide and it angles down to the rear, which actually has a little bump out for some extra space. So it's about 76 inches long of sleeping area. I personally prefer to sleep in the main cab. I've made cab over campers before that had sleeping quarters up there. And I understand they're certainly practical in terms of space or sleeping more individuals. But if I'm out camping by myself, my preference is to sleep right down here in the main cab. It also allows for a more compact, lower profile camper, which, like I talked about initially, that's one of my main goals. But this is plenty of space for a single individual. Up here, this is that cab over storage space I talked about. As you guys can see up in here, it's really big, a ton of storage. I've got a light up here so you could see. And then these doors close up to keep everything in and also add an additional layer of insulation. Right here is my secretary desk area. As you guys probably notice in this cab, there is um, not really a space to sit and eat or anything, and this is what satisfies this. So you've got a real sizable eating platform, and inside of here, a significant amount of storage. There's also a light up in here and a USB port to charge your phone, etc. This is just held up with magnets. Up here is a microwave. Um, this is the first time I've put a microwave in one of my campers, and personally, the more and more I think about it, the more and more I think it's applicable for a situation like this. Over on the right-hand side here of this, to the right-hand side of the secretary desk area is a vertical storage. It's perfect for things like jackets, maybe a firearm, something like that. Just a little bit of extra storage to put tall items up inside of there. Over here is the sink area. It does have a door that pulls off, and there is a little bit of storage, but it's mostly the plumbing and so forth for the sink. This is a very simple system. This is just a 3-in-1 pump system here. You just get these at Amazon. Has a faucet shape, a battery, and a pump. Just charge up via USB. And then down in the lower corner down here, I have a water jug that supplies the water to it. And over here, we have the refrigerator in this corner. Um, it was a tough call to do that because it took away some storage and countertop space. But I figured with the secretary desk here, the refrigerator is a nice centerpiece. I think it's both attractive but functional. Having it up in this location gave me the ability to have a larger refrigerator, and it's also easier to access. Now, down in this lower corner below the bed, I would typically carry one of my cassette toilets. And the power station sits up in this side, which the fuse box sits back up in there toward the feet of the bed. But that still leaves an enormous amount of space underneath the bed to store other items or shoes, extra clothes, bulky items, etc. Now, all of this dark trim that you see in here is walnut, with the exception of the flat panels, which is a plywood that I stained to kind of help complement the walnut. These wall surfaces that you see, this is actually fabric. This is called duck. It's kind of like a light canvas. And this entire inside of this camper is insulated really well. Way back in my second build, the idea of using this duck fabric, which is actually wrapped over expanded polystyrene foam board insulation. It has great acoustic qualities. I think it looks nice, but also it keeps the weight very low because I'm not having to sheathe all of the inside surfaces with some other material. I know walnut is heavy, and you guys see a lot of it in here. However, all of the trim has been cut down to only about 3/16 of an inch thick, just to keep the weight low. And that's also why I use a flat panel design and just use the walnut from the structural components. All right. So this camera angle here is from the inside of the camper down toward the rear wall. And I wanted to show you guys what you see right here is a 5,000 BTU air conditioner unit. Now this whole fascia over the top of this pulls off with magnets so that the AC can be serviced or replaced if it ever does break. And that's kind of a theme of this build and all of my historical builds is making them modular, meaning that you can buy off-the-shelf products. You can get these easily on Amazon. The water pump I showed, the water jug I use for my source of water, the refrigerator, most DC compressor fridges of a certain size will fit in the space of this one because things in RVs and campers break. And I wanted to make it easy that if something ever broke and I needed to replace it or fix it, or I wanted to modify it or update it with some new technology, they're easy to do so. Going back to that modular concept is the stove I use. You guys probably noticed that nowhere in here did I have a dedicated stove. And that was on purpose. What I typically do is, of course, you could use a microwave for some tasks, or I'll actually bring a 1 or 2 burner butane stove that I'll use for cooking, and so forth, things like that. A lot of times in my various campers, I'll typically try to cook outside if the weather is good, but if not, you can certainly pull it down and cook inside of here. And again, that stove concept, it's simple, it's easy, you can replace it, you can update it, it's not taking up space to where you can't work around it. Everything is simple, and that is done on purpose. All right, finally, let's go back to insulation again. I briefly talked to you guys about the duck fabric covering over EPS. EPS is expanded polystyrene foam board insulation. You guys have probably seen it stored. It has a silverback side and another side that has some writing on it. Again, a very common building material. You can typically get it at your home store. I actually have used a lot of different insulations, and in fact, this very camper used three primary types. It uses the EPS, it uses the XPS, which is extruded polystyrene, which is that it's typically like a pink or a blue foam board. But I also use a lot of thinsulate. So if you guys noticed the black fabric that lined the roof inside of this upper storage, that is thinsulate or thinsulate. I use all those different insulation in key areas. For the fabric covered stuff, I prefer the EPS. But this entire camper is insulated. The floor is insulated. The bottom section, all of the walls and horizontal supports are insulated, and the roof is insulated. One thing I always put extra emphasis on is the insulation in the roof. And if you guys notice in here, this has the angled sides that match the corresponding angled sides on the exterior of the camper. From those angle sides up to the roof, it has 2 inches of the EPS foam board insulation, and then behind that is a layer of thinsulate. So I always kind of think of it as like a little hat sitting on top of the camper. Very well insulated. That's if I'm heating this in there, heat rises, it's going to help keep it in here and keep the temperature regulated. But if the sun is beating down on it, with that reflectivity of the white and the sun coming down, I'm hoping to keep it extra cool in the camper. I've used these techniques before, and it actually works out pretty well. All right, well, that's it for the video, guys. I hope you guys like the camper. I'm just sitting here with my old puppies here. Couple things. Subscribe. I would appreciate if you guys, if you like it, give it a nice thumbs up. And for this camper and all of my other ones, I do have build series, which are on my channel. And in the description for this video, I will include tours of my other campers that I've made. If you like them, I encourage you guys to check those out. And hope you guys enjoyed it, and hope to see you guys again. Thanks for watching.